So what I'd like to do is ask you to talk among yourselves, and you have facilitators or note takers at each table, and the note taker, you know who you are, right? David, would you be one, please? And perhaps Lanny, you would be one at your table. And Cindy, do you want to be one? Okay. You have big sticky notes on your table. So just take key takeaways from your conversation. And because time is short, you can pick one of the questions. But the reason we're doing this is not just to get you having some fun, but the program really wants to hear from you about how we can continuously improve. So we'll give you 15 minutes to speak and then hear from you, and then we'll have closing remarks. Thank you. And I think one of the tables, the one back there, is all ready to come up and report and post the findings. You see, we have 3 big sheets, and these will be takeaways for Marcy and Cindy and the entire team to learn from, and to they will know which table is which and how to reach you because they know where you live. Okay. Lanny, were you going to report for that table?
Okay, so we focused on the 3rd question since we had Larry Bayless at our table, and everybody, and he was asked specifically, what will you do? What impact will you make? Or how do we measure impact? So I'm going to read my notes, and I'll see if we can find these. Okay, first of all, follow-up opportunities to act or get involved. So provide follow-up opportunities. I'm just going to read my notes, and then I'll just put these up as the note taker. After the event, in closing, provide concrete ways to get involved, volunteer opportunities or way to do something, so have something very specific that people can follow up on. If enough people have interest in a particular topic, provide opportunities for that particular aspect of the topic. And maybe in the last 5 minutes of the session, ask if people have ideas moving forward, and then you can note those. There was a question about if there's been a discussion of a particular theme for DEIS Impact each year. There has been. There's also a discussion about we talked about maybe having a theme. It was too hard to get people all onto the same theme, but the keynote, if you have enough events, that kind of has a theme running through it. So maybe have a portion of the events have a theme. And then opportunities can be overwhelming. Acknowledge that opportunities can be overwhelming for students. So this again, because there's just a lot to do and a lot of things to get involved in. Yes, a number of opportunities. Yes, you're right. And so we talked about, that specific, the concrete ways of helping or of doing something. Have a book club as a follow-up event or something, or have some other organizational meeting that's coming up. Just let people know what kind of resources there are and ways to get involved in any particular aspect. Capitalize on the urgency of people's experience in the world, what's going on in the world today. Use that as a motivation to use the momentum to get people to continue going. Tie the DEIS Impact website, which has post-event summaries on it already, we learned, which also includes resources that people are handing out. We did receive a little card that has a theme on it from a particular event, and then some book clubs and books that you can do and other resources. But make that a resource for people who are looking into a particular social justice activity. And there is some of that on a Facebook website, or Facebook site about DEIS Impact. And then we discussed options to have a place to help people get involved or find more information, whether that's the DEIS Impact website or some other, maybe send them to the Ethics Center. So that's what all of these say.
12 minutes.
Okay.
We asked a lot of the same questions as the first table about, how a theme would help. How do we get those next steps presented to people? We talked about maybe finding events where it's easy to build next steps into the event, having those more, built in and encouraging them to be built in. We also thought that it would be a good idea, Professor Williams brought this up, to expand the DEIS College to get more classroom stuff. Oh, no, we're supposed to use using this. My apologies. Expanding DEIS College, we think that that's a really good program, and we want to see it continue to kind of widen itself, and that will help with not only getting next steps thought about more seriously, but also bringing in more people that aren't necessarily attending these events. We also we talked about the third question for our entire time. We talked about, you know, what is more of an impact, whether it's getting people to attend, whether it's you know, bringing, you know, more of a result, and how do we measure that? So I'm afraid we may have come up with actually more questions than answers, but I guess that's kind of, in a way, illustrative of, you know, what the topic at hand was. There was being, you know, self-critical about, you know, what DEIS Impact is. It's a celebration, but would a celebration necessarily distract from doing the work? How do you balance that kind of thing? So paying attention to those sorts of things as well. Getting faculty more involved in general, not just through DEIS College, but involved in programs, getting students who are interested in putting on programs, actually talking to faculty members, getting them involved in what's going on. An observation we had right at the outset was that, you know, looking at the keynotes that we heard from, a lot of the people spoke about change in the world that they had either worked on or observed. But, you know, it's much harder for us to think about how we can change how social justice is done at Brandeis based on the keynotes. So perhaps those are additional events that need to be centered from Brandeis that relate to what a keynote speaker is talking about, but not necessarily from the keynote themselves. But yeah, you know, again, I took really dense notes. So I'm just gonna, I guess, slap them up on one of the boards. Hopefully my handwriting's legible.
So I'm reporting on this table here, and we also focused on the third question, I think in two general ways. One was ideas for increasing participation, the numbers of people participating. And one of these was an interesting idea, which was to increase the participation of graduate students by creating venues where students who are doing research on social justice related issues can present on their research and be in conversation with each other and others of us in the community. Another idea was to reach out to social justice oriented clubs and groups and faculty members and ask each person to bring one friend to an event who would ordinarily not come. So enhancing participation kind of in this one-on-one invitation. Let's see. Okay, and then we talked about some ways of increasing impact, and with a few different ideas. A couple, I think, partly in response to the current moment. There were quite a few suggestions about bringing people of different backgrounds, not just different ethnic, racial, religious backgrounds, but different political opinions into conversation. And we know that even though many of us at Brandeis are liberal or progressive, there is a minority of conservative people at Brandeis and people who identify in that way, who are, we also know from recent articles in the Boston area and also in the Hoot that they are also feeling marginalized here. And while we want to have a robust conversation about values, we want to also reach out to people and not feed into the polarization that is so dangerous in our country. And Asleen was talking about similar things that happened in the student movement in Venezuela in response to the Chavez regime. So we have a lot to learn from other parts of the world that have faced this. So that's another idea. We also, let's see, talked about hands-on events where people could go into communities. Now, we're sensitive to the conversation that's been going on about the difference between working for social justice and volunteering, right? And we want to keep the focus on social justice. But at the same time, we feel like it would be really good for for students and members of our of Brandeis to go into communities. Alex, have I got this right? Perhaps to do some sort of activist type action, but also as a couple of the speakers were saying, to listen and to learn from people who are living in communities where inequality is an important factor. And then I just want to, this is my own thought, I didn't say it at the table, but building on Germaine's comment, on Aslene's comment on Germaine's presentation, we have so many talented artists here that there might be, at Brandeis, that there might be some way that the stories that we're hearing from community people that need to be given more visibility could be amplified and dignified through engagement of artists with community people or through our own interpretations. So that is another idea. There was a workshop that was advertised in the booklet that kind of didn't manifest as it was originally planned, called, it was about lifting up voice and focusing on advocacy, argumentation, and social justice. And one person at our table, who's since left, not Susan, but had gone to that and then had there was a different workshop actually happening, which we understand why that happens. But she said, but I want that workshop. I want the workshop on advocacy, argumentation, and social justice. So that's another very specific suggestion for the future.